was my Jar Jar Binks impression. A little effect there. Hello, welcome to Lopez Power Lopez review of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Now, The Phantom Menace has gotten a pretty bad rap. It's not just considered the worst Star Wars movie, it's considered one of the worst movies ever made. It was quite controversial when it came out. It's probably was the most controversial movie of its time until maybe The Passion of the Christ beat it. But it's very controversial because, one, a lot of people thought it was really bad. And, it's part of a beloved franchise. And, and when it first came out, I don't know, I was only 1 year old. But I was reading around on the internet dating back to the 90s. And, it seemed like when people first saw it, they thought it was okay. But as time went on, it's gotten a worse and worse rep. Especially with Red Letter Media's 70-minute review of it. Now, what do I think of Star Wars Episode 1? Well, I kinda like it. Don't kill me. I like the Star Wars prequels. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the original trilogy beats it by far. I think the original trilogy is better. But I don't think the prequels are terrible. They have flaws, many flaws. But I don't think it's downright terrible. There are many things in my opinion, many things to like about The Phantom Menace. I think, really, it's just some of the ways it's executed. If you look at The Phantom Menace, it's actually a good story. It really is a good story. It's just not executed that well. It's very, I really like it, even though I admit it could have been executed much better. I think, for what we got, I appreciate for what we got. The thing is, you gotta think, Lucas, first, with the overuse of CGI. Lucas, the thing is, I think, with the original Star Wars trilogy, I know motion control was nothing new. Like, the original Star Trek series did it, and even movies from, like, the 50s did. But Star Wars was the movie that first did it really well. Like, it looked really realistic. So, I think with the original trilogy, Lucas did try to break grounds with technology. And he tried to do that with the prequel trilogy. He tried to, because he thought this was a revolutionary technology, CGI, and he wanted to explore the ways it could be used. And so, yeah, sometimes it looks kind of lazy, but when you kind of understand the guy's mindset, it's just that he wanted to explore what we could do with this technology. It's my George Lucas impression. And yeah, I admit I like the more practical use of the original trilogy. But, another thing to note that the prequel trilogy isn't void of practical effects, especially The Phantom Menace. As much CGI is in this movie, The Phantom Menace, there's actually a lot of practical effects to it. Like, the Trade Federation ships are actually models. There's a lot of puppets in it, like the Yoda puppet. They're, like the pod racing. That is actually, I know the pod races sitting are actually practical. And also the pod racing arena is a model, and also the what do you call it, the not Mos Eisley, the spaceport in the movie where Anakin and his mother are slaved. That's all real sets, and even if you watch behind the scenes, like the Trade Federation cockpit, even though there are green screens, it's mostly practical. So the Phantom Menace does have practical use. Um, I really like the story of the Phantom Menace. It's just not executed as well as it could have. Now, I could, me personally, I kind of like the prequels. I don't think there's anything. I mean, yeah, again, I'm just repeating myself. It has flaws, but I don't think there's nothing that can be taken from it. Um, for for example, he can explain it a little better than I can. For I can kind of understand why someone would not like this movie. If you don't like the movie, it's okay. Your opinion. And if you like the movie, great. Um, but I can understand both sides, the hating of the prequels and the liking of the prequels. Now, these people can, I'll try to explain it too, but these people can probably explain it better. Like Red Letter Media can probably explain why the prequels aren't that good. Whereas I found something I think, and it's not that popular, at least I don't think, that, Star Wars fans of the prequels can have as their Red Letter Media to support the film. Okay, so I'll post the link to it. It's not on YouTube, at least I don't think. The commentary for the Phantom Menace, not the one by George Lucas. It's a commentary for the Phantom Menace done by Rebel Force Radio, and it has Sam Witwer as part of the group. Now, Sam Witwer, if you don't know who he is, he's pretty much a big Star Wars enthusiast. He played Starkiller in The Force Unleashed. He also did his motion capture. He voiced Darth Maul in the Clone Wars cartoon. And he voices Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars Rebels. And this guy, he knows Star Wars really well. And he likes the prequels. And he points out facts, similar to how Red Letter Media does, how the prequels can work. And I'll post the link to it on the bottom. For example, the prequels kind of represent a different time period of Star Wars. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, this looks very different from the original trilogy. It has a different tone. It does. But there's a reason for that. The original trilogy takes place during a time of war. So everything is all used and gritty and kind of rough, kind of like a Western. And, with the prequels, it's clean, pristine looking. It's because it's before everything got ruled by an iron fist with the Empire. It's before the Clone Wars. If you look at Revenge of the Sith, I know I'm going to two movies ahead, but that movie had as much grit and of a used universe as much as the original trilogy because it was going on during the Clone Wars. Now, episodes 1 and 2 are different because it's kind of before the actual war happens. So the universe should look a little nicer. It should look, cleaned up. It should look shiny and pristine. Like the ship should look more smooth and all that. Also, what he pointed out is it pays homage to a different type of movie. For example, the original trilogy kind of paid homage to Akira Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress movies. So it paid homage to that type of movie and also Buck Rogers. Whereas the prequel trilogy, especially The Phantom Menace, pays a very much homage to Flash Gordon. Like the costumes, the sets. If you watch those old Flash Gordon serials, the ships, the Naboo ship looks like it comes right out of Flash Gordon, and all the clothing and all the aesthetics and like Naboos and all that. It looks right out of Flash Gordon. Lucas is paying very much homage to that part of his life. It's Flash Gordon. Of course, the pod racing, Ben-Hur. It's totally Ben-Hur. It's paying tribute to a different type of old movie. It's the same thing that goes with Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So you kind of have to think with a little bit of Lucas's mindset to really understand the prequels, and I think to really appreciate. But also with the movie Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but people are like, that wasn't really like the original Indiana Jones trilogy. What Lucas is trying to do with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is he was trying to do a different that type of movie that the era was set in. It was trying to do a 50s B movie with Kingdom of Crystal Skull because he grew up with those type of movies like Plan 9 and War of the Worlds. And also Spielberg's directing, so he wants to put his print on it. But anyway, with if you look at Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, Raiders, and Last Crusade, they do have the same style of a 30s serial with like Roy Rogers, and like it has that Casablanca feel because, well, especially with him in the bow tie in Temple of Doom, it pays homage to those type of movies of that decade from like the 30s and 40s, whereas Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull pays homage to the 50s B movie. And when you have that type of mindset, it's much more enjoyable to watch because Lucas is, I think, the biggest. And I'm not sure, I'm not saying that all directors don't do this, but Lucas, like for example, Spielberg pays a lot of homages to Hitchcock, whereas Lucas pays his homage to the movies of his childhood, like different time period movies. And so it's very much Flash Gordon with the prequel trilogy. If you look at this again, the design of the ships and the design of the clothing, it's very interesting. And Sam Witwer does point that out, and I thought, I never thought of it that way. Also, I really like I like the character of Qui-Gon Jinn. I think he is the protagonist of Phantom Menace. And a lot of people are like, the Phantom Menace doesn't have a protagonist. It does, and I'm not saying he's not one of like the best protagonists. He's not as good as or relatable anyway, as a protagonist as Luke Skywalker. But I think he is the protagonist of the film because one, the story kind of centers around his choices, aside from the Queen Amidala's anyway. Also, he has the most screen time of the movie, and also he has the most what do you call it? He gets top billing, so that's another clue. But from a story aspect, he's the person that, what's the word, kind of holds everything together. He's kind of the person we go with the journey with through the movie. We see the story through kind of his perspective. So I think he really is the protagonist of the movie. Now, of course, if you don't agree with me, that's fine. But that's kind of how I see it. And also, even though the story is quite complicated, it's different. It's a little more political than the other Star Wars movies. Not that, New Hope did have that conference scene in the Death Star and talked about politics, but this one's a little more heavy because Lucas wanted to have, with all the political stuff, he wanted to have more of a dramatic feel to the collapse of the Old Republic. And I think, Lucas really, that's kind of his way of doing it. And yeah, it does seem boring at sometimes, but it's kind of a micro perspective of the Star Wars movies. Micro meaning it's kind of the politician's viewpoint, the dictator's viewpoint, with not all of it, but some of it, with the stuff that goes on. For example, with the original trilogy, we had Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Han Solo. It was from their perspective. Lucas wanted to have more of a micro with, sometimes the politician's perspective of things. It was just kind of his different approach to it. And I think that's kind of a new way to take it. When you think about it, I do kind of like it a little better. Now, this review isn't devoid of critiques. There are some things I will criticize on. For example, Jar Jar Binks. I liked him as a kid. And I don't think he's annoying, but he is kind of in the way of things. He he is very specifically there to appeal to little kids. Um, but the thing is, without I think without Jar Jar Binks, this would have felt like with a more serious approach to the Star Wars universe. Not to say that the originals weren't serious; they just kind of had more of a childlike wonder, but it kind of had the heart of a child story type of thing. Whereas the prequels, I think, with the again Jar Jar Binks kind of puts conflict in this, but without him, it would have been a very more serious take on the stuff leading up to Darth Vader's Anakin's demise into Darth Vader. Now it's just that it kind of gets in the way of that. It kind of becomes a sort of a Christ story without Jar Jar Binks, if you know what I mean, like a strong, a kind of adult story. Um, Another thing I don't like is the midi-chlorians, because that takes the spiritual aspect out of it. Because at first, it has, that big spiritual force to it. It has a metaphor for the Bible with Jesus, with her giving birth through the Force. A kind of a virgin birth, similar to Mary and Jesus. Shmi Skywalker with Anakin kind of symbolizes that. So at first it does have that mystical, spiritual stuff for symbology that we all like with Star Wars. But the thing is, that's kind of taken away with the Metachlorians. Now, I know that I think the purpose of the Metachlorians was to show, and I'm kind of paraphrasing this from another YouTuber, but it was to show that how Lucas needed a way to show how powerful Anakin was. And it needed a way to show how powerful a dude Anakin was, why he was more powerful than Yoda. And he kind of thought he could do it through a scientific way, but Star Wars isn't always about science. What differs from Star Wars from something like Star Trek is it has more of a mysticism to it. So the Metachlorians, that creates the Force. I don't really like that idea because it's a scientific way of doing something that's supposed to be spiritual. Now, how I would have rewritten the Metachlorians, because Lucas did need a way to say he's a powerful dude. Instead of what creates the Force, why not they're attracted to the Force? Like, they're attracted to the energy around the Force. Like, so we all have them, but those who have the Force, who are Jedi, it attracts these microscopic organisms called midichlorians to them. They're not what creates them, because the idea of that midichlorians creating things is a dumb idea. But I think if he would have had an idea of like maybe they're attracted to the Force rather than creating the Force, I think would have been a better idea. So again, I love the lightsaber fights. Jake Lloyd, give him some slack. He was a kid. Granted, Lucas maybe should have written him as 18 or 19, similar to Luke. But for what we got, he's not that irritating. He's kind of a fun little kid. I love the lightsaber fights. Great choreography, great music, a lot of emotion through that fight. Qui-Gon Jinn, I think, is a great character simply because he not only is he the protagonist, but he is kind of the voice of what should be done right. Like, he doesn't always follow the Jedi Order in a way that he becomes institutionalized to it. He wants to have his own conscience, his own wisdom, not really a government-based type of wisdom. With he has more portrayed by Liam Neeson. He kind of has like a father figure, a quality, not equality, quality to him. that I think is kind of likable, especially with him, with Anakin, and even with Obi-Wan. You feel, especially in that one scene where he's like, "You're wiser than me, Obi-Wan." You feel that it's a cool, genuine relationship going on there, which I think is done a little better than it was in Attack of the Clones. Um, so yeah, that's my thoughts on the Phantom Menace. It is a slower paced action Star Wars movie, but I think it's supposed to be like that because one, it's setting up stuff for the original. I mean, original trilogy too, but also the what's the rest of the prequel trilogy. Um, could things have been done better? Could have been executed better, more strongly? Yeah, but for what we got, I think it was fine in my opinion. It's not a flawless movie by any means. It does have a lot of problems. Especially, but the midichlorians idea and the Jar Jar Binks idea are the two biggest problems. Um, I think, to kind of fix Jar Jar Binks, I would have made, if I were George Lucas, I would have probably put more of an alien voice on him instead of like a childlike voice with subtitles. I think that would have made him a more interesting character. Um, Ewan McGregor is pretty good. He's better in 2 and 3, but he still has that. You feel that this is Obi-Wan's presence as a young man, and I think he portrays that very well, especially with his looks and kind of like he kind of has the same thing that Luke does. He kind of like the I don't know master type of thing, and you could see that when in the New Hope when Luke has kind of that feelings. You could see that he's like, oh, I've been through this before. I know how to help you, and you can see that in Ewan McGregor's eyes when he portrays Obi-Wan. I like the sword fights. Also, this is John Williams, with the exception of Binary Sunset. I think Duel of the Fates and the rest of the soundtrack is probably the best Star Wars soundtrack. I really do. I really do think it's the best one out there. Williams' soundtrack for this, it really has a sense of adventure to it, a sense of energy that you feel like you're gonna have fun, and I really like that he incorporates that. And he kind of has that grand Maurice Jarre, Lawrence of Arabia feel to it. Um, Also, I really like the look of the movie. It's filmed on film, and you can tell it looks beautiful. It looks like one of those old Hollywood movies like Ben-Hur or Lawrence of Arabia. It has just a very grand feel, similar to the original trilogy, but kind of in a different way. That I wish, that the digital doesn't really incorporate in the other movies. I think this one is the most beautiful looking of the prequels by far. Um, because it's filmed on film, you can see the colors more, and it just seems more grander. So that's kind of my thoughts on the Phantom Menace. I would give this movie a 3 out of 4 stars, an 8 out of 10, about a 7.9 out of 10. Uh, I give it a B plus, a B minus. I give it about a B minus. 7.9 or 8 out of I'll go 8 out of 10, 3 out of 4 stars. If you like prequels, I really like this movie. um if you're new to Star Wars, don't listen to the other people before you watch this. Watch this movie first. After you watch the original trilogy first and then watch this movie, form your own opinion. Don't necessarily listen to other people. So if you're new to Star Wars, don't listen to the other people. Don't listen to Red Letter Media yet. Watch the movie a couple times, form your own opinion, and see how you like it. So I might review the other Star Wars movies. I'm also going to review the other Rocky movies later. Also, shout out to Benjamin Snyder. I tried to get onto that movie blogger site, but sorry, it's my dog. I tried to get onto the movie blogger site, but the CAPTCHA password, I can't decode it. I don't know what it means. It's just all these colors. Maybe if you can explain to me how I can decode the password so it doesn't think I'm a robot, I would be very grateful. So yeah, that's my review on Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Sorry it's a long one, but I just had a lot to say about it. So, yeah. See you in the next review, and take care. May the Force be with you. God bless you.